We've therefore seen that we can build our plan in Microsoft Project, starting with the basics, our tasks, our durations, our links between our tasks and our resources. And we've seen that we can now use that same project file to track our progression. So we save the baseline, and then we can use that baseline as a measurement point to see how we're doing. So let's take the My Kitchen Underway working file, where we're partway through the project. Okay, we know we're partway through, but how does that compare to where we should be? Well, we have a couple of tools at our disposal. The quick one is the project statistics. So if we go to project information, and then statistics, we can see the current values. So that's our currently. We started on December the 19th and we're due to finish on January 27th, but the baseline said we should have been finished by January the 20th. We have a variance of just over 5 days, and we don't have an actual finish date because we haven't finished yet. We also have a quick comparison between the current duration, work, and cost, the baseline duration, work, and cost. Notice our costs haven't changed from the baseline. Obviously, the duration has actual, so we're 15.83 days into the project, and then what's left, 13.67. So percentage complete is 54% as far as the duration goes. So we're over halfway time-wise. But as far as the amount of work, so the amount of work hours that have been completed, we are 39% of the way through. So that's the project statistics, a nice little quick summary of where you're at, and you can look at that at any point in time. Now, to get a little bit more closer detail to see which tasks have gone over and where the problems might be, we can firstly change the Gantt chart, which is the default view, into the tracking Gantt. So we go to the drop down here on Gantt chart and choose tracking Gantt. That then changes the right-hand Gantt chart view into the tracking Gantt, which we've already had a quick look at. It has effectively two bars for each task now, an upper bar, which is where we are at, and then a lower bar, which is the baseline. So you can see the upper bar will either be blue or red, depending on if the task is critical or not, and then the lower bar will be grey. So here to start with, we were on the baseline. Then there was a major delay here on removing the units, which has now caused us to be out of sync with the baseline. And you can see that this is where things have happened, because we're 100%, so I know that's done, but that's where it should have been. And the same down here and the same down here. So we're now adrift, and we can look at the effect that that has had on the final milestone, which is now January the 27th, whereas it was here back at January the 20th. So we've lost a week in all time-wise. So that's the tracking Gantt. The tracking Gantt in itself only changes this right-hand view, the actual Gantt chart itself. There are the ability to change the table as well. The left-hand table here is the default data entry table, but we know we can change to other tables. One table that would be quite useful from the view ribbon and tables is the tracking table. You can see here the columns have now changed. We may need to widen some of them to read them. This has the task name again, so we know what task we're dealing with, the actual start date and the actual finish date. So down here where we haven't finished yet, we get NA. Percentage complete and the physical percentage complete. So that's the difference between the duration and the work. Actual duration, remaining duration, so what's left on a particular task, or in the case of our summaries, in a particular phase or section, and then the actual cost and the actual work. So this is the amount of costs, which is based on a calculation multiplying by the work. So that's that column there. So that's quite a useful table, because then you can see task by task where we're at, how much is done, how much has been done duration wise, how much is left to go, and then the actual cost. Another table to be chosen from is the variance table. And the variance table compares the start to the finish, which is current start to current finish, baseline start to baseline finish, and then the variance between the start and the finish. So at the beginning here where we were on track, there was no variance whatsoever. Then we lost some time, and then we've become 5.05 days out. And that same variance is all the way through now for the remainder of the project. Chances are that we will certainly lose some more time unless we're able to recoup some somewhere, perhaps by multiplying the amount of people that do a particular job to therefore make it happen quicker. So that's the variance table. Compares the start time, baseline start time, finish time, baseline finish time, and gives you the gap. One other table that is quite useful as well is the cost table. This contains variance columns. I'll just widen that again. So we saw the cost table earlier when we wanted to put in any fixed costs for particular phases or tasks or the whole project. And now we can see a comparison between the total cost, the baseline cost, the variance, which is actually zero at the moment. So even though we're behind time, it hasn't cost us any physical money because people haven't worked anymore for the moment. We can also see the actual cost so far and then what's remaining. Again, that's per task, but then that's rolled up into any summaries that may exist. So in phase 2, this is a phase that's not complete. We've effectively spent just under £1,000, but there's still just under 5,000 to go to complete that section. So these are a variety of tables that you can change to have a look at and compare how you're doing so far. And you can obviously look at these at any point in time during the updating of the project. So we change the view to the tracking Gantt because that gives us a graphical edge of where we are and where we should have been, comparing ourselves to the baseline. And then we've looked at different tables. Those tables are chosen from the view ribbon, and we've looked at the variance table, the cost table, and the tracking table to compare where we were with where we should be, or where we are now with how we should have been. And then any change you obviously make will affect either or any of all of these tables, depending on if it changes the finish date, the start date, or the costs.